Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a 3-part horror film, 3 SAAM GAANG. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The first story is called Memories. A man wakes up on a couch. He sees a doll on the floor, which suddenly turns to face him. A woman is sitting on the floor, rocking back and forth. The man sits up and the woman turns to face him. Getting scared, the man turns on the lamp beside him. The man goes to see a doctor. He tells the doctor that the symptoms started after his wife disappeared. The doctor replies that he might be experiencing mental dissociation. The loss of a loved one might have made him unstable and unable to remember things. The husband states that he cannot remember why his wife might have left or even what she was wearing when she left. He admits to the doctor that he has been seeing strange things and that he thinks that something bad has happened to his wife. After the consultation, the husband drives home to his apartment in Newtown. On the way home, he sees the aftermath of a car accident. The husband watches as the female victim is hauled out of her car and brought to safety. Meanwhile, the man's wife wakes up in the middle of the street. She looks at her surroundings but is uncertain where she is and why she's there. She doesn't remember anything. She looks through her belongings and sees a receipt with her home number on it. She heads to a restaurant to try and call the number. While at a parking lot, a security guard approaches the husband. They talk, and the guard tells him that the building is weird. He tells the story of how one time, when he was patrolling the building late at night, he saw a bunch of clothes and a dead girl in the building. He also saw a man sitting quietly in the darkness, just a few feet away from the girl. The wife arrives at a restaurant. However, the people there pay her no attention. She finally gets to a phone and calls the number, but there is no response. She looks outside and sees a young girl running in the street. She chases after the girl. The girl boards a school bus, and the wife is unable to reach her. That night, the husband arrives home with his daughter. He plays his answering machine and hears a message containing only heavy breathing. The doorbell suddenly rings. His wife's sister and brother-in-law enter the room. They ask him what happened, but he also doesn't know. He asks the sister if his wife has called her, but this offends her, and she leaves to listen to the answering machine. The husband gets angry and tells her that his wife hasn't called. His temper scares everyone in the room. The husband tells them the story of how he passed a car crash on the way home. He tells them that he has a feeling that something bad has happened to his wife. Meanwhile, the wife tries to locate her husband through a phone book. She finds their address and enters a taxi. When she asks the driver to bring her to the apartments, the driver does not say a word. The wife tries to leave, but the driver suddenly drives forward. They pass the apartments as the driver continues to ignore her. When the driver pulls over to receive a call, the wife runs out of the car. Back at home, the wife's sister looks around the house. She opens a cabinet and finds photos of her sister and his wife. They soon leave and take their niece with them. Left alone, the husband starts seeing visions of his missing wife in the house. He lies down on the sofa and sees the shadow of his wife in the house. She walks toward him with blood dripping from her leg. She drives her finger deep inside her ear and mutilates herself. The husband wakes up from the nightmare. He finds his wife lying bloody on the floor of their bedroom. She suddenly moves, startling him. He wakes up once more and finds out that it was just another nightmare. Meanwhile, the woman walks to a gas station. She enters the restroom and washes up. She finds her arms covered in bruises. Suddenly, severed fingers start to drop into the sink. She gets glimpses of what happened the night before she woke up on the street. She later finds her way back to the apartment and gets another flashback. It is revealed that her husband murdered her by bashing her head in with a rock on the rooftop of their apartment. She finally realizes that she is only a ghost. This is why the driver and the others paid her no attention. The husband is also racked by guilt and trauma from killing his wife, hence the nightmares and the visions. She watches helplessly as her husband sleeps on the sofa. The husband wakes up in the morning. He peeks into the black bag on the living room floor. Inside it is his wife's severed and mutilated remains. He brings the black bag to his car and drives out of town to dispose of his wife's body. The second story is called The Wheel. One rainy evening, a boy and his mother drown in the river with a traditional dancing puppet. The family patriarch and owner of the puppet, Master Tao, is sleeping. He talks in his sleep, revealing that whoever shall take his puppets will die an agonizing death. His puppets are imbued with his own life and soul. If Tao dies, then his puppets should die with him. Shortly after, Tao wakes up from his sleep and finds the ghost of his son and wife in front of him. His apprentice, GAANG, enters the room and calms him down. GAANG is unable to see the ghosts. The next morning, the village holds a funeral for Tao's wife and children. At the funeral, GAANG is approached by Master Tong, Tao's rival and a teacher of an ancient dance called Kan. GAANG tells Tong that there is a curse on the puppets, but Tong is unconvinced. He thinks that Tao is simply making the curse up because he doesn't want anyone to take his prized puppets. That night, Tao's room suddenly catches on fire. Tong and other members of their performing troupe arrive in time to extinguish the fire before it burns the house down. But it is already too late for Tao. he is already burned to death. The other performers express their fear about Tao and the curse in his puppets. However, Tong doesn't believe them and hatches a scheme. In our culture, puppeteers like Tao are well respected, while dancers like Tong and his students hide behind masks and are seen as lowly performers. Jealous of Tao's status and prestige, Tong decides to steal Tao's puppet. Later that night, Tong sneaks out of bed and enters Tao's room. He brings the puppet to the river and washes it. However, he suddenly gets pulled into the river. GAANG, who saw Tong leave his bed, dives into the river and pulls Tong out. The puppet floats to the top, just as GAANG leaves Tong alone. The next day, Tong teaches his students how to dance. He calls GAANG over and offers to teach him how to dance. Another student teases GAANG, stating that he might dance like the wooden puppets that Tao taught him to use. For the next few days, the troupe is tormented by the puppet's curse. A GAANG performer dies after suffocating from his own mask. Tong's daughter also starts playing with the puppet. Her grandmother tries to confiscate the mask, but is interrupted by an unseen force. She suddenly drops dead to the ground. The following morning, GAANG reminds Tong to be careful of the puppet's curse. However, Tong is adamant about keeping the puppet. He decides to cut and dismantle the doll in an effort to lift the curse. Meanwhile, another member of their troupe succumbs to the curse. She puts on makeup and dances outside Tong's room. She later hangs herself. That night, GAANG is awakened by a strange sensation. He opens the front door, but sees no one there. The suicided dancer stands in the doorway in front of GAANG, but he's unable to see her. The performing troupe's life continues. GAANG falls in love with one of his co-performers. Tong assumes the role of puppet master. He claims ownership over all the puppets in the troupe and tells his students that he alone controls the puppets' spirits. GAANG shares glances with his crush. Unbeknown to them, Tong's son watches them with jealousy. At the same time, Tong's daughter breaks the leg of a puppet. This sensation reverberates with Tong, and his own leg gets injured. He and the puppet are now connected. Later that day, Tong's son approaches him. He accuses his father of favoring GAANG over him. Tong tells him that GAANG is more experienced and truly deserves the role. This pushes the son to drink alone that night while the rest of the troupe performs on stage. After the performance, GAANG and his crush play a sweet hormone game. Tong gets nightmares of the puppet's curse. He wakes up and sees Tao's ghost standing in front of him. This scares him. He grabs his sword and starts swinging. He accidentally hits a lamp. It falls to the floor and explodes, setting the room on fire. He starts cutting up two puppets inside a trunk. The fire gets out of control, and Tong burns to death inside the house. At the same time, Tong's son confronts GAANG and his lover in a drunken fit of rage and jealousy. Like his father with the puppets, the son slashes at GAANG and his lover with a sword. After they die, two flame apparitions appear, scaring the son. He runs away. Unable to save his father from the burning house, the son grabs his sister, and they ride a boat to escape. However, he is terrified upon learning that her sister has brought Tao's puppet with her. The sister smiles and jumps into the river. Her brother jumps in to save her, but fails. Shortly after, the son wakes up and finds himself safe on the banks of the river. He looks up and sees the ghost of GAANG and his lover sitting above him on a tree. The ghost of his sister also appears. She raises his sword and kills her own brother. The scene returns to GAANG saving Tong from the river. Tong had just stolen Tao's puppet and was trying to wash the puppet when he got pulled in. It is revealed that everything that has happened so far was only a premonition, a vision of what is to come if Tong keeps Tao's puppet. Regardless, Tong decides to keep the puppet for himself, bringing the tragic fate onto himself, his family, and his troupe. The last story is called Going Home. Old photos hang on the wall of a photography studio. Inside, a man gets his photograph taken. He then walks out of the studio. Meanwhile, a retired cop walks to his new apartment with his son. The son stops in his tracks upon hearing an eerie noise coming from an abandoned store with a chained-up gate. He quickly runs away. Retired cop and his son soon reach the apartment complex. The son notices another child waving at him from the apartment's roof. Retired cop meets with the landlord, who tells them that everyone is moving out and that the place is about to be demolished. While they are shown around, the son runs into their neighbor, a man named Yuri. The landlord informs them that Yuri's wife is paralyzed from the waist down. Yuri's daughter follows closely behind him, wearing a red dress. She's the child waving to the boy from the roof. That night, retired cop leaves for work. The son admits that he's too afraid to go to the restroom alone, but retired cop scolds him for being such a coward. He departs for work, leaving his son alone at home. Meanwhile, Yuri's daughter watches the boy from a distance. Yuri plays with his wife. Retired cop has dinner with his son during his break. He reminds his son to be brave and not be afraid of anything. When the son reveals that Yuri's daughter keeps staring at him, retired cop tells him to man up. The next morning, the son sets out for school. He bravely runs through the apartments, screaming at each one before slamming all their doors shut. Meanwhile, Yuri goes out to throw his trash. He brings the garbage bag, which is leaking a nasty brown fluid. Right then, retired cop arrives home from work and watches as Yuri takes out the trash. He then goes to bed and sets up an alarm. In his apartment, Yuri cuts his wife's hair. He tells his wife that his parents are expecting them for the Chinese New Year. Yuri asks her what gifts they should get for their parents, and the wife responds that they should get chocolate. The son later arrives home from school and hears creaking and other loud noises from upstairs. He sees Yuri's daughter standing ominously in the hallway and gets scared. However, she only wants to play with him. The son agrees, and the two go out to play in the photography studio across the apartment. Retired cop wakes up at 11 in the evening. Since his son still hasn't returned home, he asks the other tenants in the building if they have seen him. He knocks on Yuri's door. When Yuri opens the door, retired cop notices a strong herbal smell. He asks Yuri if his son is inside playing with their daughter, but Yuri quickly dismisses him, saying that he doesn't have a daughter. Retired cop begins to suspect Yuri of doing something illegal. In the morning, retired cop waits for Yuri to leave his apartment. When Yuri leaves, he breaks into his apartment and finds an herbal concoction. He also sees Yuri's wife drowning in the bathtub. It's revealed that the wife is already dead, and Yuri is only pretending that his wife is alive. Yuri suddenly appears behind retired cop and knocks him out. He later wakes up tied to a chair and sees Yuri preparing an herbal bath for his dead wife. Retired cop asks him where his son is, but gets ignored. He charges at Yuri and knocks him down. Yuri gets up and continues to ignore him. Retired cop charges once more and gets knocked out with a pestle. When he wakes up, he finds Yuri talking to his wife and painting her nails. Retired cop tells him that his wife is dead, but Yuri disagrees. He tells him that by using Chinese herbs, his wife's tumors will disappear and she will get revived. Retired cop calls him crazy and correctly guesses that Yuri strangled his wife since she has bruises on her neck. Yuri responds that his wife must be killed first before she can be cured. When retired cop asks Yuri to return his son, Yuri says that he hasn't taken his son. Yuri tells him that his wife will revive in 3 days. Only then can retired cop be released to look for his son. That night, Yuri performs acupuncture on retired cop and even gives him medical advice. Yuri reveals that he and his wife studied Chinese medicine together. However, they couldn't heal themselves, and Yuri was forced to kill his wife. He reassures retired cop that his wife's soul will stay in her body, as long as he is by her side. Yuri continues to try and heal his wife. He lies down on her lap and expresses his regret that he wasn't able to heal her. He laments if he had cured her, they wouldn't have had to abort their baby. Apparently, they never had a child, and the son's playmate is only the child's ghost. Yuri hallucinates his wife, telling him that they can try to have another baby as soon as she gets better. The next morning, after going out to throw the trash, Yuri helps retired cop urinate into a bottle. He tells him that he tried looking for his son, but no one seems to have seen him. Yuri explains how he has talked to his wife every day since she died 3 years ago. Later that evening, Yuri gives his wife a bath for the last time. He asks her what colored dress she would like to wear, but she does not respond. The day of the wife's revival comes. Yuri dresses her up and applies some makeup on her. He calls out her name repeatedly, but she does not respond. Retired cop listens disapprovingly from the sidelines. Suddenly, a knock on the door is heard. Yuri hides his wife behind the curtains and opens the door. The man at the door is a cop looking for his former colleague. Yuri tells him that retired cop went away to gamble in Macau. The cop thanks him for his help and leaves. Yuri returns to his wife. He suddenly notices that her body is getting warmer. Excited over his wife's imminent revival, he sets retired cop free. However, retired cop tells him that the police know he is being held captive since they know that he never gambles. Police storm the apartment and arrest Yuri. Retired cop frees himself and watches as Yuri is brought into custody. The wife's body is taken away in a metal box. Yuri escapes the car and runs after his wife's dead body. Out of nowhere, a car appears and runs over Yuri, killing him in an instant. A few moments later, an investigator talks to retired cop. She tells him that the body of Yuri's wife is still pristine, almost alive. Her hair and nails are still growing, even 3 years after her death. Inside the truck, the wife's fingers start to twitch and move. A tear falls from her eye. Retired cop tries to investigate the case. He finds out that Yuri himself apparently had liver cancer, but had miraculously cured himself through herbal therapy. He finds a video message from the wife to Yuri shortly before she died. In it, she asks Yuri to let her soul remain inside her body. She then promises to be resurrected. The video cuts off, but turns on once more after a few seconds. The next video shows the wife caring for Yuri when he was sick with cancer. It also shows the wife preparing a bathtub full of herbs, just like Yuri did with her. It is revealed that Yuri's miraculous recovery from liver cancer was thanks to his wife killing and reviving him, similar to how Yuri tried to heal her cancer by killing her and then resurrecting her. The film ends with the son inside the photography studio. He waves goodbye to Yuri's daughter. He exits the studio and looks at it from outside, revealing it to be the abandoned and chained-up store from earlier. Yuri's family get their picture taken together. This means that the store is actually closed and only exists in the other world, the world of the dead. Possibly, their aborted daughter has been lurking and waiting for them in the other world, so by trapping a little boy and tricking retired cop into looking for his son at her parents' apartment, she successfully stops her parents' next resurrection. The family is finally complete and reunited. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.